Call this meeting of the Housing Authority of the City of Salem to order. If the recorder will call the roll, please.
Vice Chair Kaiser,
Present.
Commissioner Anderson,
Approaching my desk.
Commissioner Nanke, Commissioner Leung, Commissioner Osick,
Here.
Chair Hoy,
Here.
and Commissioner Cook is absent, and in her place is guest counselor Nancy McMorris
Audix.
Audix.
Here.
Commissioner Lewis,
Here.
Thank you. If you'll please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Do you have any public comment? Well, before we get to the public comment section, I would like to just welcome our guest counselor, Nancy McMorris Audix. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thanks.
And there's nobody signed up for public comment, so Commissioner Kaiser, do you have a consent calendar?
I do. I move the consent calendar with the following polls. 3.3A by Member Anderson.
It's been moved and seconded by Councilor Nanke to approve the consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. No action items. We have, let's see. I'm sorry. We'll just go to the poll then. Councilor Anderson.
Thank you. With respect to item 3.3A, I move the staff report.
Discussion?
Yes, I have some, and I talked earlier to Nicole Utz and also Jessica Blakely, who are in charge of this program, and it sounded so fantastic when I read about it. I wasn't exactly sure that what I was reading was true. And they assured me that it is, that this is a way for the city to partner with developers in order to allow them to build more affordable housing and to make it work for both the developers and for the city. And I ask if one or both of them could speak to that a little bit.
Hello, my name is Jessica Blakely, and I'm the asset manager for Salem Housing Authority. This program was created because Oregon statute has allowed for a public housing authority to essentially be a general manager in a type of partnership with developers or other entities. And because we are tax exempt for property taxes, we would be able to then pass on that tax exemption. And so what we've done is we've created some guidelines, which if a developer is interested in lowering some of their rents, we can by contract set some terms of giving them either a full exemption or a partial exemption on their property taxes. And the thing that makes that nice is that we're asking them to lower their rents and therefore limit some of their cash flow because there's lower rents. And in return, they'll be able to have that waiver of the property taxes, which is kind of a benefit. It's an offset basically for their expenses. And so we, as a developer as well, it takes time for us to build things. So we're hoping to gain more partnerships so that we can give that benefit out to that developer and in return get affordable housing units in the market a lot faster.
A couple questions. How long has this been in operation, and how many programs, how many developers have taken advantage of this?
So far, we have 3. Well, hopefully, if we pass to, the one tonight, we will have 3. We have one, Fairhaven Gardens, which we're in partnership with now, and that one is about 2 years old. So it's a fairly new program. So we have 2 right now, and hopefully one more tonight.
And is there any minimum number for the units involved?
No, we set some guidelines so that we could start a conversation, but there's no set in stone guidelines, and we would want to talk to anybody that's interested in a partnership, and we can see if it works.
I am now speaking to all the developers who are here in the audience today, and to all those who I know are watching this on CCTV. This is a terrific program that certainly benefits the people of the city of Salem and also can be a win-win for the developers because it's the tax problems or the tax that often create problems, so it makes it so affordable housing does not pencil out for developers. And this is a terrific program, a way that the city has that we can utilize the expertise of developers in building apartments, but also obtain more apartments for people who really need them. So thank you for this work, and I hope that you publicize it well as well.
Thank you.
I think it would be a good idea for you to maybe outline the number of units that we're talking about adding to the affordable housing inventory in Salem.
Absolutely. So Fruitland Meadows is 132 units of affordable housing, and it has mixed affordability. So there's some at the 80% AMI level, which is 80% of the area median income, as well as 60% units. So that project is 100% affordable. There's Fairhaven Gardens, and that one's 87 units, and that is a fully subsidized property. So that one is 30% of the tenant's income. And then this one tonight that we've brought to the board is Claxter, and it's 102 units of 60% AMI units. So it's also 100% affordable that we're hoping to see online very soon.
Excellent, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Those opposed? Motion carries. Seeing no further business for the Housing Authority of the City of Salem, this meeting is adjourned.
Good. Good to see you.
Call this meeting of the City of Salem Urban Renewal Agency to order. If the recorder would please call the roll.
Board Member Kaiser? Board Member Anderson?
Likewise.
Board Member Nanki? Board Member Leung? Here. Board Member Osick? Here. Board Member Hoy?
Here.
Board Member Cook is absent. Guest Counselor McMorris Audix? Here. Board Member Lewis?
Here.
And Chair Bennett.
Here. Righty. Any additions or deletions?
No.
Okay. Anyone for public comment? I have two people signed up for public comment. Excuse me. Kathy Rains.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here this evening. My name is Kathy Reynes, 260 State Street. I am the president of Co's Development. We are the developer of the 148 unit housing project there on the corner of State Street and Commercial. I just want to say how excited we are to be here in Salem. This is our first project. I think it's very appropriate that we happen to be on the agenda tonight following the Salem Housing Authority. We are a developer that focuses on affordable housing. We have affordable housing units in every jurisdiction that we participate in, which is as far south as Salem and as far north as Everett, Washington. And we take great pride in the programs that we bring to the communities that we develop. We are long-term hold developers, so we are looking at creating this beautiful building in downtown Salem and holding that and creating a great opportunity for business development and affordable housing downtown. And we look forward to being here.
Great, thank you. Councilor Anderson?
Thank you for coming down, Ms. Reyes. And before the meeting, I introduced you to Nicole and Jessica of the Housing Authority. And this seems like a project that could bear some fruit if you all get together and work. And I would appreciate and encourage you very much to see if some of those units can end up helping provide affordable housing, as well as giving you an additional tax break of some kind, because I think we may have already given you one, but more is better in that case. So thank you very much
I
for
sent
coming
them an
down.
email while we were sitting here. So,
Very good. Any other questions? Thank you very much. Linda Nishioka?
Good evening, Linda Nishioka, resident 735 Tillman Avenue, Southeast Salem, and also with the COES project at 260 State Street. I've been working on this project, as you well know, for quite a long time, and very happy with how it's progressing, and I'm basically here in support of Kathy and the project.
Great. Thank you, Linda. Thank you for your persistence on this project. I have no one else signed up to address the Urban Renewal Agency. Is there anyone I missed? All righty. The consent calendar.
I move approval of the consent calendar with the following exception. Item 3.3A, pulled by Councilor Anderson. That leaves us with the minutes of our July 8th Urban Renewal Agency meeting.
Does anyone want to question him on the minutes?
I'm ready.
He's ready. He is. Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes. Councilor Anderson.
Thank you. With respect to item 3.3A, I move the staff recommendation.
Second.
Second by Hoy.
Mr. Mayor, we've already talked about this. That's with the COES people, and with respect to the sustainable, or excuse me, the affordable housing, that's setting that aside. Just this development itself is very good for downtown. One of the things that is crucial for our vital downtown is to have people there. And this unit, this apartment unit, which I'm now pleased to see is 148 units. I thought it was much lower. I thought it was somewhat lower than that. That will bring at least 148 people downtown. I also am quite interested in the waiver we gave to parking requirements several meetings ago that makes a whole lot of sense downtown, because parking is at a big premium there, and it's the use of surface parking is pretty much not a waste, but it's moving toward a waste of money and usable land. So I think this is a very innovative part of that project, and I look forward to seeing it come to fruition.
Great. For those who are wondering where this is exactly, this is the old McMahon's furniture site. If you recall, McMahon's burned down a number of years ago, and the Nishioka's been working on this for some time, so we're all real pleased to see this moving forward to this extent. It's very exciting. Okay, all those in favor, did you have any, Louis, did you have a, no, okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion passes. And I don't see any further business, so we are adjourned. Okay. Call this meeting of the Salem City Council to order. If the recorder would please call the roll.
Counselor Kaiser? Present. Counselor Anderson? Also. Counselor Nanki? Here. Counselor Leung? Here. Counselor Ossick? Here. Counselor Hoy?
Here.
Counselor Cook is absent. Guest Counselor McMorris Audix? Here. Counselor Lewis? Here. And Mayor Bennett?
Here. Well, Councilor McMorris Audix, glad to have you with us this evening. As you know, you are more than welcome to comment and ask questions, anything you'd like. We just ask you not to try to vote. We'll have to stop you right then. Okay. Very good. Additions, deletions, revisions, Counselor?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I move additions and revisions to the agenda as follows. Item 3.3E has been moved to item 5.A, special orders of business. Item 6E that has a revised report attached. Item 7.1C has been deleted from tonight's agenda.
Second by Nanki. Whoops.
Ossick.
I'm sorry. You're next, Austin. We'll catch you on the next one. Any discussion? Why don't you let us know what got, at least let us know what got dropped, just in case anyone's here to.
The proposed rescission of the plastic bag ban was removed from the agenda.
So if you're thinking of testifying on that, it's not there anymore. Yes?
Likewise, the Fairview
Yes.
property was appealed, so staff will be putting a public hearing on an agenda in the future if people were here to speak to it as well.
Okay, very good.
didn't know
Counselor Anderson?
Just to follow up on the plastic bag ban, so the people know here, what it was the state has introduced their own plastic bag ban, which has many similarities to the one we introduced, and that doesn't take effect until January 1, and so the issue was, do we want to rescind the ordinance we have because the state will take over in January, and I think the feeling of the council was, no, we do not want to rescind it. We passed it, and it should stay in effect until the state supersedes it.
Okay. Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes. Council comment. Counselor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to ask the council's indulgence to make sort of a personal statement, but it concerns things that are happening in our country, in our state, and our city. There is a disturbing trend in our country, starting at the top, of hatred, of violence, of demonizing anyone whose viewpoint, appearance, or any other characteristic is different than what is wrongly considered to be normal. This trend has dripped down to Salem in many ways, both public and private, including into civil discourse in our community. Recent events highlight this. So, what can we, as individuals and as members of the body politic, do about this? How can we live our lives as productive members of society in our country, our state, and our city? How can we work for justice for all persons in our part of the world? A very good way to start is to treat others with kindness and compassion, especially those with whom we disagree on any given issue, who may disagree with our opinions, and who may not be as fortunate as we are. Here is an excellent example of how this can be done right here in Salem, Oregon. Delana and Russell Beaton, longtime Salemites, a retired high school counselor and a retired Willamette University professor, have long been concerned about homelessness in Salem and have done something about it. With the help of many others, both individuals and businesses, they have created an innovative housing opportunity for 5 previously homeless women. The Beatons have purchased a 5-bedroom, 2-story home on Hood Street Northeast, which they and others repaired and refurnished to be used to house 5 women aged 55 or older who have low fixed income and who have been priced out of the market rental housing. With the help of Arches, which is actively looking for women to refer to the Hood House under its coordinated entry system plan, Hood House will become permanent housing and a home for these women. Congratulations, Delana and Russ, for acting on your concern with kindness and compassion. May you be an inspiration for everyone in our community to do good for others.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Hoy?
Thank you, and thank you, Councilor Anderson, for those words. I just wanted to acknowledge that the Sprague Little League team, who we had here 2 weeks ago, has made it to the Little League World Series, and that's pretty darn amazing. So really proud of those boys. So
We're lucky we had that preview.
yes, yes.
I notice they're not back tonight. We'll get them back here again. Yeah, they're on their way. Counselor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to invite down Police Chief Moore to talk about some of the events that have occurred around town over the last week or so, and to speak to those so we can all kind of hear how the police are responding to those events.
Thank you, Councilor. Mayor, councilors, thanks for the opportunity to address you. If you're not aware, I have released a statement to the media and social media and our neighborhood associations earlier today, but I will cover some of those issues because I know this is a matter of community concern. Between August 4th and August 8th, the city and parts of the county experienced a series of violent crimes in a very short period of time. Now, our goal as law enforcement officers is to keep this community safe. And I know from the input I've received and our department has received from this community that certainly these incidents have raised the stress level of our community. I just want this community to know that our job is to keep this community safe, and I can tell you we are working diligently with our partners to do exactly that. There's been a lot of speculation. There's a lot of rumor out there on social media. So I want to maybe set the facts straight about exactly what has happened in the last week or so, and provide you the facts of where we are. On August 4th, a young man was shot in Englewood Park and subsequently died of his injuries. A few hours later, a few blocks away on 22nd Street, there was an unrelated domestic homicide which occurred. The suspect in that domestic disturbance homicide has been arrested, and the case has been handed over to the Marion County District Attorney's Office. On August 5th, there was a drive-by shooting in the 1400 block of Evergreen Northeast, and thankfully no one was hurt in that. A short time later, maybe several hours outside the city in Marion County, there was an additional shooting that occurred where no one was injured. On August 8th, a car was shot near Market and Clay Streets in Northeast Salem. No one was injured in that incident as well. So the questions that I have received and our department has received ask about whether these are gang-related or whether they are connected in any way. Either of those facts may be the case, but they may not. And at this time, it is simply speculation until we determine whether those statements are either accurate or inaccurate. I will tell you, we don't conduct our investigations based on the label of any individuals. We conduct them based on the activities and the actions of those people that are involved. So regardless of whether they may be connected or gang-related, I can tell you that we're working with our partners, Marion County Sheriff's Office, Oregon State Police, especially their forensics unit, and our partners in both adult and juvenile parole and probation to try and identify suspects and move forward with these investigations. We do understand that the public would like to have a lot of information about events such as these, but I must tell you that case integrity is critical for our success in bringing those responsible to justice. We release details as soon as we can, and they've been verified, and that may take days, weeks, or we don't know how long that will take. Many times, details of these incidents are actually clues for us, and if we release that information, our ability to solve these crimes is hampered. We do understand that the committee wants that information as much as they can, but we also they understand that we will not speculate or give out information that isn't true. Now, I've been asked on a couple of occasions during one of the important questions, and that is, during the course of my career, have I seen incidents such as these that occur in such close proximity? And I will tell you I have. In most of those cases, it's one or two individuals that are responsible for all of the incidents, and once those folks are taken into custody, the violent incidents cease. And that would be our goal in this case, is to try and get those responsible off our streets. We understand people want these solved immediately, and we do too. The fact is, these are complex investigations, but I can tell you our department and our partners are working around the clock in an effort to solve these crimes. Our officers and our detectives, along with our partners, utilize all of their resources to bring these cases to a close. But I will tell you, our resources are certainly strained when we have this many incidents. Finally, and probably most important, I want to tell you, this is a safe community. The majority of Salem's person-to-person crimes, which is what these are usually committed by people that are known to each other or potentially related. They are not usually stranger-to-stranger crimes, so I think it's important that this community understands that. I've told you our officers are working hard to try and solve these cases, but we can't do it alone. We would suggest and encourage anyone that has any information or sees things that are disturbing to them to give us a call so that our officers can respond and take a look at what's going on. I hope that answers your questions, Counselor, and if I can answer your questions, I certainly will.
Councilor Kaser.
Thank you. I really appreciate your comments, Chief. And I also wanted to comment, too, that I went on Saturday to the Inglewood Forest Festival in its third year. There were a number of people there. There were booths. I think the neighborhood really felt like we're going to come out and support the community, especially the Nen neighborhood there in Inglewood Park. I know there were a number of officers there as well, which it was much appreciated to that neighborhood specifically. So thank you for all your work.
I want to second that, Chief. I visited the Inglewood Forest Festival twice, early in the morning and then in the afternoon, and was really pleased to see officers there. And really, what a tremendous turnout. This is their third year, as Councilor Kaser pointed out, and that neighborhood is very proud of that event and the neighborhood. And I know you're very sympathetic to what's happened there and understand why the concern heightened. I live just within a couple blocks of the event, and I know my phone rang off the hook several times over the weekend with other issues where people were concerned just about things they were seeing. So I really appreciate what a good job you all are doing with, as you pointed out, the limited resources you have. And I hope, Chief, over the next year or so, we can change that and reverse the course that's happened in this city in terms of essentially freezing the size of our police department to the point that it's difficult for you to meet the challenges you face on a day-to-day basis. So thank you, Chief, very much for all the good work you do.
Thank you.
Councilor Hoyt. Councilor Hoyt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief Moore, I just wanted to thank you for coming here and speaking to this. I know I've gotten a lot of questions, neighborhood meetings. People have a lot of questions. They're concerned. The tension level's up. But in all of that, they always echo the support for you and your department. And so I just wanted to pass those good words along. That I hear that all the time from residents. So thank you.
Councilor Anderson.
Chief Moore, I'm sounding like a broken record here, but I agree with Councilor Kaser and the mayor and Councilor Hoy. I too was at the Inglewood Festival, and I want to tell you that it's not just the police that were there. The way they were interacting with the people and the community there is a credit to your department, and it starts at the top with you. But also, I want to say that the outpouring of support there for people saying this is our neighborhood and we're proud of it, and we're going to be there for our neighbors and to help our neighborhood. I also will just say in passing, these events are some of the recent events I referred to when I was talking about the breakdown to some extent of civil discord, and it's not just the crimes that you were talking about, but it's other ways about how we treat each other. And I think the Inglewood Festival was a prime example of how we should treat everybody.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
We love you, Chief. Yeah, Jackie, go ahead. Okay. Did you want to comment, Jackie? Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. So the first thing I just wanted to do is thank the city recorder for updating the minutes from the July 22nd meeting, the one specifically on 5.C, the one regarding the temporary location of the Salem Public Library. Initially, I was marked as an aye, but it was updated so that reflects a nay vote. And I'm slightly disappointed that the lease, from my understanding, the lease has already been signed, so there's no opportunity to call this up for further conversation in terms of a reconsideration. And I do hope and I expect the city to work with the Human Rights Commission to emphasize that the temporary location is a welcoming space for all people within our community.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Counselor.
And there's two other things.
Yes, you go ahead.
Okay. On Saturday, I went to a back-to-school event that was organized by the Boys and Girls Club, and it was from 11 to 1 o'clock. And within that first hour, over 1,000 people came through with backpacks. And I believe they had a little over, I don't know exactly how many backpacks they had, but I know from last year, they had about 2,000 backpacks to give away. So if this was any indication of 1 hour, imagine how many actually walked through that door. Another thing I also wanted to make a brief announcement about is that the Micronesian Islander community are having their annual cultural celebration, and that is going to be on Saturday, August 24th. And it's going to be from about 4 p.m. until about 8:30 p.m. at Chavez Elementary School. And so if anybody here wants to join, I mean, you're welcome to come as early as 4 o'clock, have a meal with us, and we'll have different performances. We have people who are going to be singing, some who will be dancing and doing other demonstrations from the community.
And where and what date again? And time?
Saturday, August 24th at Chavez Elementary School. It's off of Cordon Road.
Okay.
4 to 6.
Great. 4 to 6. Okay. Very good. Thank you very much. Anyone else? All righty. No proclamations, no presentations. We do have public comment. This is what? Okay. All righty. We'll just call everybody that signed up on this. Ann Thompson?
Good evening. My name is Anne Marie Thompson. I'm a resident of 1180 Winter Street, and I want to thank you for allowing me to address the council. This is in regards to removal of the parking on Winter Street for Chariot bus services. First statement I'd like to make, it's my understanding that developers need to issue a public hearing before they make any changes that impact the community around them. Why not Chariot? That's my first question. With removal of the parking, there is a few concerns that I have, and that is in regards to where all the people are going to be parking that are dropping their children off for Grant School. So this kind of brings up a little bit of a safety issue, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, because in the morning and the afternoon between the Chariot bus services and the parking, that is where they do park to drop off their children. And it is also going to limit the residents that live there. On my particular block, they're removing the parking like a quarter of the street directly across from each other. So that one particular block, you've now only have one block period between the yellow of the stop signs and now the removal of the parking. So, and like I said, my question is why Chariot has not followed the proper procedure in handling the development of removal of the parking and the changing of the bus stops. So I thank you so very much.
Were you contacted in advance of?
No.
Okay.
The only time we heard about them changing the bus stops were when they pulled up and started pouring concrete slabs in the easement. So we got no warning whatsoever.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nick. Boy, Nick, I apologize. Belikes? I'm going to say this all wrong, so when you introduce yourself, we'll get it right on the record.
Mayor Bennett, members of the council, thank you for having me. My name is Nick Balachix. I live at 1115 Winter Street Northeast, so the same block that Anne Marie was talking about. And my concern here is basically with how Chariots ran over the neighborhood. They disrespected the process that we feel they should be going through and communicating the changes to the bus stop that they're going to make in our neighborhood. That affects us all. And let me tell you, I love Chariots. I bought a house right on the bus stop. I used to ride that bus before, it's the number 2. I used to ride the bus before I moved to the neighborhood, which is 2 years ago. I'll get to that in a minute. And every morning at 6:14 a.m. precisely, the bus has an external speaker that says route number 2, Market and Brown to downtown transit station. I don't know why it says that at 6:15 in the morning, but that's my cue to get up, start the day. I love it. I love that sort of thing. Yeah, you know, I love public transportation and Chariots, but they disappointed us here when they didn't contact us before moving the bus stop locations, and that negatively affected some of my neighbors. Not so much me, because the bus stop is still right in front of my house where it always was, but I'm here in part to advocate for my neighbors in the community who really got the raw end of the stick when it comes to parking, the parking situation now.
Any questions? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just curious, did you contact the Chariots board at all? They have public meetings as well with testimony available to the public. Did you go there, and if so, what happened?
So thanks for the question. No, we were never informed of a meeting. It's the sort of thing I think they should have came to us and told us where we should go to address these concerns.
I don't mean for a hearing or whether there was a hearing or not. I just mean that they have a regular meeting scheduled on a regular night, just like we do. It's open for public comments, and you could go there. I was just curious if you did that.
No, I have not.
Okay, thank you.
And so why, how is this an issue for the council? Well, I think Chariots had a bad relationship with our neighbors when they did this. Not only did they not contact me, I lived there for 2 years, never heard anything about the bus stop changes. Their process with the city, my understanding, is to go to the neighborhood association. I wasn't aware that they did that, but I heard back from the neighborhood association people. They said, oh yeah, we contacted the neighbors who would be affected. Like, what? No? That's kind of like using my name without my permission. If they're like, oh, Nick lives there, he obviously doesn't care, then the neighborhood shouldn't care. No, I just didn't know. I didn't hear about it. Following up with a meeting of the Citizens Advisory Traffic Commission, same thing. They told the commission that they had contacted the neighbors, but they hadn't. I think this makes a mockery of the public involvement process. I recommend not allowing for the removal of parking at this time, because it just sets a precedent to allow Chariots to continue to do this thing. I'd like to go back to the drawing board, get the proper people, stakeholders involved to have these conversations ahead of time before they just blanket move bus stops and remove parking from the neighborhood. I think that's the only way we can achieve the result of safe and reliable, efficient infrastructure if the vulnerable populations affected by these changes are included in the process. So, those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Nick.
Any questions? Thank you.
John Lewis? Levis? Lewis? Levis? W-I-S? Trying to trick me, aren't you? Or I can't see is part of the problem.
It was too easy.
Yeah, it's too easy.
Exactly. So my name is John Lewis, and I represent Creations Northwest, builder of the Aspen Grove project, and I'm speaking in regards to the reconsideration of the reimbursement district for the Aspen Grove project. Creations Northwest was the builder of the project, and I was the acting project manager for the project during construction. And at the time of construction of the sewer line, we acted as agents of the city and to construct the sewer to the main line. This is how we were able to work in the existing city easement on the adjacent properties. The sewer was installed with stubbed up connections for the immediately adjacent properties. A large portion was ran through our property within a city-required easement to allow the 4 properties on the south side to connect to the city system as well. The line through our property only services the adjacent properties and is of no benefit to Aspen Grove project, either financial or for future connections within the development. That portion itself is over 35% of the entire sewer constructed. We are but one of the 10 properties that sewer line can or does service. We did not choose to run that line through the property. It was a requirement the city placed on us trying to create customers for that line. It is only fair that we are reimbursed for this line since it services several properties and can service more in the future. We also feel that the cost allocation methodology did not include the costs that should be allocated to adjacent properties. Therefore, we respectfully request the City Council make a fair decision, reopen the hearing on this matter, and allow us to present our case for reimbursement. Thank you.
Thank you. Were there any questions? Anybody? Okay. Bob Sanders, maybe?
My name is Bob Sanders, and I also work for Creations Northwest, owned by Hans Tygeson for the Aspen Grove Reimbursement District.
Can you get a little closer to that? I'm sorry,
Okay.
There you go, thank you.
Hans is out of the country and not able to be here tonight. He was also not available for the previous public hearing and did not receive notice, and he sent a letter, an email into the city recorder today, and I'm asking if everyone received a copy of that, stating that he didn't receive adequate notice and requests reopening of the public hearing. So I'm also talking about another element of that. So as the owner's representative for the Sanitary Sewer Reimbursement District, I was the delegated staff member working with city staff. Neither Hans nor I were notified of the public hearing by Glenn Davis, even though I'd had regular phone and email contact with Glenn since he was assigned. I had not heard from Glenn since May 15, 2019, and sent him an email at 5:42 p.m. on July 22nd, 2019, the night of the hearing, asking about progress update because I had not heard from him since May 15th. The next morning, he sent me an email stating that the district, reimbursement district, was before City Council on that previous night, and it was denied. I had been in phone and email contact with Glenn since May, when he was assigned to take over for Lyle Misbeth. I had been working on the reimbursement district with Lyle since July 18, 2018, and Hans had been working on it for over 2 years prior to that with staff. But as of July 2018, I had had no response between as of December 12, 2018, I had no response from Lyle. I continued to send emails and had no response. I then contacted Peter Fernandez, the Public Works Director, on May 3rd, asking for help since I had had no word from Lyle for many months. Peter told me that Lyle had left the city and apologized for the lengthy delay. He assigned Don Whitehurst and Glenn Davis to pick up the pieces. In watching the July 22nd, 2019 City Council video after the meeting, I was quite surprised that we were the cause of the long delay in getting the city the needed documentation and sewer costs. This was certainly not the case, with staff trading different staff members and many delays in trying to work with staff. Lyle Misbeth had emailed me on December 12, 2018, that engineering was working on certifying the costs that I had submitted to him. One of the items he had questioned was a $42,000 cost to obtain the sewer easement across the Clark's property. Apparently, the city felt the fair market value of the easement was $180,000. John Wales, director of the Urban Development Department, submitted a report on the easement acquisition to City Council on June 11, 2012, stating the background of the easement acquisition by Hans and that Hans had made a good faith effort to acquire the easement through Universal Field Services at market rate and substantially more, even offering to buy the Clark's entire property. This report states that Hans met the necessary requirements for the city-initiated acquisition under Salem Revised Code Chapter 66, which I understand now has been repealed in light of the federal and state requirements.
I'm sorry, the time's out. Any questions? Okay, thank you. Alan Alexander.
Good evening. I'm Alan Alexander, representing the Sunny Slope Neighborhood Association. I'm here tonight representing our association, encouraging the council support of item 3.3 alpha, and that's the approval of the master plan for Secor Park. As many of the councilors know, Secor Park has languished for over 30 years, looking for development. And in the interim, hundreds and hundreds of new homes and new dwelling units have been built around the area, bringing in many, many new citizens. So we're encouraged, and we appreciate the support that the parks folks have done in getting this thing moving, but we need it to continue to move. The folks down there, there's only one developed park in the Sunny Slope area of over 8,000 people, and Secor has the potential to bring a neighborhood park to many, many of our new residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Any questions? Great. Thank you. Ian Johnson.
Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. My name is Ian Johnson. I live at 1495 Evergreen Avenue Northeast. We are to speak to item 3.3D, the abandonment of parking spaces along Winter Street, as with my private citizen hat and bus rider. Wanted to go ahead and speak in favor of the abandonment. But before I get started, one thing I was unaware of was some of maybe the issues of outreach with chariots. And while I think it's important, especially as a neighborhood person, for that to happen, I would encourage us to all think about not putting an extra burden on chariots or any other organization. Certainly they should be carrying out what they need to do as far as public outreach, and that's personally, to me, important. But they should also not be held to a significant higher standard either if that's not legally required. Even though maybe as good neighbors they should indeed anyway. So I just kind of want to share my personal experience, but also the importance of transportation. This particular route goes from Chemeketa Community College, past the Park and Ride, all the way to downtown. It's a major route, runs every 15 minutes. It's a major connector. You can literally get anywhere in Salem on this route, so it's an important one. And you know, if we want people to use public transportation, it needs to be accessible. I was thrilled when they poured the pads. I got tired of getting my feet soaked trying to get to the bus on a regular basis. But also, those pads really, and the bus being able to get close enough is an important thing for just general accessibility. We all talk about the disabled, but I had the experience where I had a leg injury and getting that 18 inches up on the bus, it hurt trying to get up there, and they can't kneel down low enough. Also, anyone who's carrying bags, has a stroller, if you're just short, trying to get off and off the bus is a problem. And so these pads really are something that needs to happen there, and the buses need to get close. As it sits now, my experience just this morning, there was a vehicle parked in front of the landing area for the bus. Bus parked 6 to 8 feet out. Do people behind the bus in traffic, do they go around the bus? Do they wait for the bus? What happens there? And you know, this is the good weather here now too. So what happens when it starts to get dark, when it's icy, when the bus can't get close enough to that curb? It is a significant barrier. So whatever the council chooses to do, I would say this is a problem that needs to be fixed. This is a major route and something needs to be resolved.
Thank you very much, Ian. Yes. Councilor.
This isn't a question for Ian, sorry, Ian. But Mr. Mayor, I guess as an oversight on my part is, I'm not sure how to do this, but I would like to pull 3.3D.
I've pulled it, but I'll let you have it.
All right. So, and I'm not sure how.
I read your mind.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm not sure how that affects public comment on the item, but.
I'm done, so.
Are you done?
When you dismiss me, I will go.
Well, I was just waiting for something on the North Campus. I just thought, because.
You know, I am so thankful I'm not here to talk about that.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Ian. Barry Lee Coyne.
Thank you. My name is Barry Lee Coyne. I live at 3289 Oak Crest Drive in West Salem, Salem Town. And it's a pleasure to be here. And I have had some of my counselor friends here as past guests on our CCTV show called Gray Matters. But I'm not here to talk about that. Okay. I have put a structure as to what I'm going to talk about. Number one, when we talk about homeless, I would like the name of homeless to be rebranded as shelter seekers. I think it's a much more positive way of dealing with the issue rather than a negative homeless not having a home. So let's have the Statesman Journal and CCTV and all the people, we take the pioneer on top of the state capitol and be pioneers here in this community and be friends of the shelter seekers and not their adversaries. Number two, I would like Salem to become a clearinghouse of existing so-called programs for the so-called homeless in other cities. Salem does not have to reinvent the wheel, and when we pursue the different steps incrementally we could take for that shelter-seeking community, we should learn what other cities, both in Oregon and Washington, are doing, and maybe learn some of their best practices and incorporate those here. Number three, there are variations of the shelterless population. There are some people who have recently lost their jobs and are newly in that bracket. There are some people who have chronic illnesses and are there because they cannot afford to pay their rent or do other things. There are some people who have mental health issues, not necessarily dangerous ones, even though the President of the United States tries to lump all mentally ill people together. We won't do that here in Enlightened Salem. And number four, I found out today, and I would like to suggest this as a possible protocol in the future, the neighbor-to-neighbor program will entertain the possibility of doing mediation or facilitation between the organizations like the Salem Chamber of Commerce and the existing community action program on such items as the sidewalk curfew that's now being proposed. So I suggest that rather than letting it get into the political mainstream of adversarial relations, that we pursue the possibility of using neighbor to neighbor as a intermediary. And number five, my own role as a CCTMC of Gray Matters, I would like the stigma of past be dropped and success stories of the future. So I've invited I'm inviting the people of the homeless programs once a month to have a success story to help destigmatize the so-called homeless and have success stories to show how you can emerge from the back there. And finally, I have a little prop. Let this be our motto in the future, try and err. Thank you. That's
Thank
my
you
old
very
license
much.
plate from my days in Virginia.
Thank you, Barry. Dennis?
Questions, answers, responses, critiques?
Thank you, Dennis, or thank you, Barry. Dennis Godby? Am I right? Followed by Jeremiah, followed by Dave Behar.
Hello, I'm Dr. Dennis Godby. I'm actually not from Salem. I'm from Sacramento, California. Sorry.
Get a rope.
41 years ago today, I was running through Salem from Corvallis all the way to Calgary, Alberta, Canada, to promote exercise and nutrition as a student at Oregon State University. So 41 years ago today, that run began, and now we're beginning another run from Salem. And this time, it's just a shorter distance because I'm now almost 63. And the distance is to Portland, where we're having our national convention. And I am a naturopathic doctor, and we are working to promote naturopathic medicine in all 50 states, just like Oregon has, because there's only 22 that are licensed, and we have 28 to go. And the rest of my peers here will tell the rest of the story.
Great. Thank you very much for stopping on this run. Appreciate Jeremiah?
I'm Jeremiah Godby. I work and live in Sacramento, my dad's clinic, and basically in 2011 we ran across the United States from San Francisco to New York, and that was to raise awareness about naturopathic medicine. By the way, I was born here in Oregon. I was born and raised here, and so in 2011 we ran across the United States, and that was to raise awareness about naturopathic medicine, and so I think so. So in Salem tomorrow we're running from Salem to Portland, and that's to keep raising awareness about naturopathic medicine, and we think that all 50 states should be licensed here in across the country. So that's what we're doing.
Great, thank you very much. Dave?
Hi, Dave Behar, Executive Director of the Run. Thanks for having us. Of course, tomorrow morning we leave at the City Hall steps to Portland, and would like to invite each and every one of you to just join us and send us off to the other great city of Portland. And we're going to the National Convention. It's a great industry, and we're tying in natural health, the products that you see in the stores that you buy. And Oregon being the leader, one of the key leading states in the country, for not only have already licensing naturopathic medicine, but also what the rest of the nation looks for. So we have about 53 miles of love anyway going. And so councilors, mayor, and attendees, please join us tomorrow morning, 8:30 at the City Hall steps. Thank you very much.
Are you at City Hall or the Capitol?
Actually, pardon me, the Capitol.
Oh, good.
Thank you. We'll be at
That's
both
where I was
places
going to
for you.
be, yeah.
Exactly. Thank you very much.
You bet. Very good.
Isaiah Godby. I'm Jeremiah's brother, Dr. Godby's son. My brother and I went to Oregon State University. We finished college a few years ago. We majored in fitness and nutrition, kind of as a pre-med track, so that we could become naturopathic doctors. We'll be applying next year. But for us, we ran across the United States, like my brother said, 8 years ago. We ran from San Francisco to Bridgeport, Connecticut. It took us 4 months to get across. We were running about 30 miles a day, and we held events usually every few days in different cities along the way to promote fitness and nutrition, but also to talk about naturopathic medicine and about for us, it's not just about having someone have an absence of disease that we cared about when you have coin the term health, but it was more about feeling the strongest, having the most energy, being able to focus the best, and so it's really about optimizing your health. And so for us, naturopathic medicine has been something that has really helped us use the medicine to run across the country to be able to perform ultra marathons along the way. And so my brother and I separately were able to work with Oregon State and run through 30 to 36 counties, working with the 4-H groups to talk about fitness, to talk about nutrition. But naturopathic medicine kind of encompasses all of that with medicine, with science, and with nutrition in your diet, as long with exercise. And so we go around the country doing different runs to get people to be moving, to be active, and things like that. So we're here this year here in Oregon, and instead of working on licensure for the different states, Oregon's already has been licensed for decades now, and we've seen a lot of good work. And so we're here just to encourage naturopathic medicine throughout the state and throughout the United States.
Great.
Thank you.
8 a.m. tomorrow morning on the Capitol steps. 8:30. Well, I'll be there at 8. Anyone want to join me? Okay, very good. Is there anyone else that wanted to speak to an item on the agenda? I was told there may be some folks wanting to speak on Aspen. No, that's a public hearing. We'll catch you. No.
There's no public comment on the payroll tax?
Yeah, that's coming up. That's a public hearing. So this is just if I was told there was some folks that might want to speak on 5A. So I'm going to take that as a nope. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Consent calendar, Counselor.
I move approval of the consent calendar with the following poll, item 3.3D by Councilor Kaiser with an assist from the mayor.
Handoff. It's a handoff. Okay.
Second.
Do you want to discuss any of these?
Not till we get a second.
You want to take us? Do you want to take us through any of this?
Sure.
Okay.
Item 3.1A is the draft minutes from the July 22nd, 2019 City Council meeting. Item 3.3A is the Secor Park Master Plan update. 3.3B authorizes the city manager to execute the attached IGA with Marion County and any amendments to the IGA in order to provide mobile crisis response team services during fiscal year 2019 to 2020 and 2020 to 2021. Item 3.3C is an intergovernmental agreement with the State of Oregon Office of the Fire Marshal for regional hazardous materials emergency response. Item 3.3E has been moved to item 5A. Item 3.3F is an intergovernmental agreement with Marion County for the Mid-Willamette Valley Cable Regulatory Commission. Item 3.3G is a claim settlement authorization. Authorize the city manager to resolve the matter of the Bethany Elliott lawsuit in amount not to exceed $75,000. Payment will be made to the city from the city self-insurance fund. And that concludes the consent agenda.
Okay, we've got a motion. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. We'll then go to public hearings.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Before we go to public hearing 4A, I'd like to announce that I was not present for the meeting when it was discussed. I have not watched the CCTV program, and so on advice of the city attorney, I'm removing myself from any decision on this matter.
Okay. No testimony, yeah. Okay. Okay, you'll recall this is, what is it? Salem Heights subdivision, yeah. That's why everyone's here. And Olivia is going to give us a quick recap, and then we're going to deliberate.
Very quick. Good evening. I'm Olivia Glantz, planner with the Community Development Department. I'd like to remind everyone of the proposal and where we're at in the process. The applicant has requested to subdivide approximately 8 acres into 33 single-family lots. 2 appeals were received of the application, and council voted to review the application and held a public hearing. Where testimony and written comments were received and submitted. The public hearing was closed on July 22nd, but the record was left open for 7 days for any new testimony or evidence to be submitted, which is an attachment 1 of your staff report. Staff provided information during this time period to clarify issues raised during the public hearing. The following 7 days until August 5th, everyone and anyone were able to submit written rebuttal to that new testimony, which is found in your staff report as attachment 2. Then the final 7 days were provided for the applicant to provide written rebuttal and their final written argument, which you received today. Council will hold deliberations tonight with no public testimony. Do you have any questions of me?
Thank you. Comments? Deliberations?
Okay, we have a motion. Let's get a motion on the table to get
sorry.
show on the road. No, that's okay. I'm sorry. I don't mean to jump on your lines here. So, Councilor Hoy, let's have a motion on this. With Councilor Cook absent, I
Yes.
default to you unless someone else
I'll
wants
be happy to do it. I move that the City Council affirm the June 6, 2019 Planning Administrator's decision.
Okay.
Repeat that in here.
Essentially, I moved staff recommendation.
Okay, so motion staff recommendation, second by Kaiser. Any discussion? Councilor Kaiser.
Just in support of the motion, I think we heard a lot of public testimony. What we heard last time, though, was really focused on Salem Heights itself and the condition of the road. It's a very separate issue than the subdivision. As far as I can tell from the planning administrator's decision, it meets the criteria for what our code is. I think the comments about Salem Heights they're of course they're appropriate, they're valid. All of that is just this is not the right place to discuss improvements to Salem Heights separate from the subdivision, and that's why I'm supporting the motion.
Yes. Counselor.
I'm not really sure of the process, but I'm going to ask a question.
No, you're welcome to.
I couldn't find, and I'm sure it's here, but more details about the map, and I would be really curious to make sure that there's adequate parking for any kind of subdivision that's not going to push any parking onto Salem Heights Road, which already feels like a challenge to get down as it is.
Do you want to answer that?
So every new single-family dwelling is required to provide 2 off-street parking spaces, and typically the garage has to be set back 20 feet, so ultimately there ends up being 4 spaces, 2 in the garage and then 2 in the driveway.
Counselor Hoy?
So I listened intently to all of the testimony and read the documents, and this is one of those it's difficult. The neighbors are concerned about Salem Heights, and rightfully so. But as with a lot of these land use decisions, they didn't give us anything to base a denial on, and so I don't see a path to do that, and so I'll be supporting the motion.
I think that's the most frustrating part of this is trying to find a way, whether it's for denial or to find a compromise in looking at closing Doughton and pushing traffic onto Hanson. You suddenly trip a whole new process, and that surprised me that we couldn't get there from here. I thought we were looking potentially at something the neighbors agreed with, that the developer agreed with, but it didn't seem to. In talking with public works staff, I couldn't find a way to get there from here. It's a really frustrating situation because Salem Heights is not in good shape. I think we all agree on that. It's one of those, like we see in other parts of town where it was annexed into the city as a county road. The county road was inadequate for city service and certainly for a growing part of the city, particularly for an area that's going to get 38 acres of development. It's just real troubling. I hope Councilor Cook or all of us remember this as we look at next year's CIP and we start looking out in years for the kind of funding we're going to need, or as we talk about streets and bridges bond measures, that we start taking some of these county roads real seriously, because these just keep coming up. You've got them, Councilor Hoy, I know. Ossick has them in his, Kaiser has it in hers. We've got a lot of these. Do you have any? Yeah, it's just a real difficult problem as we look at the peripheral part of town, and that's where all the growth is. So we have got to get ahead of this thing. And then sidewalks. We've got a really important bond measure ahead of us at some point, which ought to go over big as people begin to recognize what the cost of being in a city of almost 170,000 people really looks like. Okay, y'all ready to vote? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion passes. Okay, got a public hearing. Here we go. We'll talk money now. We'll have a public hearing regarding payroll tax. Do you want to introduce this?
Sure will. The City Council will now conduct a public hearing to receive testimony regarding Ordinance Bills 1119 and 1219 relating to a payroll tax and operating fee to fund city services. The hearing will be conducted with a staff presentation first, followed by other interested persons. Individuals testifying are limited to 3 minutes.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Mayor Bennett, councilors, for the record, my name is Josh Eggleston with the Budget Office, here to provide a brief presentation on the 2 revenue options for the general fund, an operating fee and an employee-paid payroll tax. On July 8th, the council made modifications to the proposed operating fee and payroll tax. These changes have been incorporated into the ordinances before you tonight. The general fund supports services such as police, fire, court, Parks and Recreation, planning, code enforcement, library, social services, and other services that provide a citywide benefit. In recent years, expenditures to fund essential city services have exceeded revenues received. The city has funded the difference from its working capital, which is like money in a savings account or reserve account. Without additional revenue, we will not have enough money to pay for the services we provide today. The first of the 2 revenue options before you tonight is the city operating fee. In Oregon, there are more than 50 cities that utilize operating fees to fund services. For Salem, the proposed fee is based on utility account classification and would be placed on utility bills. On July 8th, the council moved to make changes to the original recommended operating fee rate structure. The rates on the screen reflect that direction to change the residential rate from $10 to $8 and the corresponding change to multifamily to $6.40. The rate for the commercial, industrial, institutional, and public account classifications were adjusted to a 4.82 to 1 ratio of the residential rate, or 38.56. In addition to the rate structure changes, the council moved that the operating fee should increase annually for inflation. The total revenue for the operating fee is estimated in the first year of implementation to be $7.1 million based on the revised rate structure. This is gross revenue and doesn't include administration or the rate assistance program. Should the operating fee ordinance be enacted, the fee would be effective in January 2020, billed to utility accounts in February, and revenues would be collected beginning in March. The second revenue option before you tonight is an employee-paid payroll tax. The tax would apply to wages earned by those working within the city limits. There are 3 other cities in Oregon that use a payroll tax to fund transit services, as well as TriMet, Lane Transit District, and the statewide payroll tax. In addition, Eugene has recently passed a payroll tax ordinance. The proposed ordinance reflects the requested changes council made to the proposal. These changes include an exemption for employees earning minimum wage, a progressive rate structure similar to Eugene payroll tax ordinance, and to solve for a total of $16.2 million with the combined operating fee and payroll tax in the first full year of collection. With the operating fee generating $7.1 million in revenue, the employee paid payroll tax rates have been adjusted for the remaining 9.1. Based on those changes, the tiered rates are set at 0.266% for those earning above minimum wage, up to and including $15 per hour, and 0.39% for those earning more than $15 per hour. The rate is applied using simple multiplication. It is important to ensure that the decimal is in the right place when calculating the proposed payroll tax. 0.266 is the same as 0.00266. There is also a payroll tax calculator on the city website. This slide shows the proposed payroll tax impacts on those making full-time or 2,080 hours annually and earning minimum wage, $15 per hour, $15.01 to demonstrate the change in rate, and the highlighted $25 per hour is equivalent to the median household income in Salem of $52,000 annually. This concludes my presentation. City staff are available to answer any questions after public testimony. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Patty Tipton. Followed by Tom Hoffert, followed by Jeff Miller.
Good evening, and thank you for letting me talk tonight. Not close enough? Sorry.
That's okay.
It's hard to say. My name is Patty Tipton. I am the chair of Lansing Neighborhood. I live at 3240 Hamill Street, Northeast, Salem. I'm here to talk about the income tax. Our concern is with the people that live within our neighborhood and a few people that have talked outside the neighborhood about this income tax. We feel that it should go to the people and have them vote on it instead of having you vote on it, because you are taking money out of our pocket without our permission, and we felt like we're being cited. So that is the consensus of people I've talked to. So I encourage you to please let the people of Salem vote on this issue, and that way you'll have the confidence of the people, not you. Okay?
Okay, great.
Question.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Patty, could you clarify, are you speaking on behalf of the neighborhood association or
Yes,
in your
Aligned
individual capacity?
Association and the people within our neighborhood, yeah.
So you're speaking on behalf of the association? Thank you.
And that was the general consensus.
Great.
Thank
Thank you, Patty. Tom Hoffer, followed by Jeff Miller, followed by Maria Palacio.
Good evening, councilors, mayor. My name is Tom Hofford. I have the opportunity to represent nearly 1,000 members of a small business committee for the Salem Area Chamber of Commerce. We're in Ward 1, and I'm also a resident of Ward 1. Speaking on behalf of our membership, I would reiterate our official position that I voiced on July 8th, that we would ask that the City Council take these two revenue sources, the operating fee as well as the payroll tax, for the vote of the people as soon as the May election in 2020. Our membership was a little bit, there was some shock and awe as we talked about how these revenues came about from the task force. We want to echo the task force official recommendation that they're taken to the vote of the people. And we have a number of our members in the audience today. Our membership is largely small business owners, and the operating fee of $462 additional per year has a very real impact. And as we look at equitability and the like, we would just encourage that if this is sound policy and the City Council feels strongly in moving forward with these two revenue sources, that you allow the voters to back that opinion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Tom. Yes, Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. Hofford, and thanks for coming down, and thanks for representing the chamber. A couple questions. Is this the official chamber position, or is it a position of the Chamber Political Action Committee?
Great question. This is the official position of the Salem Area Chamber of Commerce. We're represented by a volunteer 23-person board of directors, and additional 2 youth representatives that come out of our Leadership Youth Program. Those individuals are elected by the membership, and on behalf of our nearly 1,000 members, we'd ask that they're referred to the voters.
Okay, so the members themselves didn't vote on it, but the executive committee voted on it?
No, incorrect. I'll clarify again. Our board of directors, which is a 23-person volunteer.
No, I understand that with two youth and everything else, but that was who voted on it. You didn't poll the 1,000 members of the chamber?
We did not take a vote of our 1,000 individual members, no, sir.
And then it's one thing to say this should go to the public, and then when it goes to the public for a vote, does the chamber plan on taking a position other than it should just be voted on by the public?
I would expect our Salem Chamber to 100% be involved in a position on this measure. Councillor Cook on July 8th asked me, is the Chamber of Commerce in support or against each of the 2 individual measures? We, in fact, find a lot of merit in the discussions of how we would reach a potential revenue deficit of $8 million, but neither of the individual revenue positions did we take a position on, because we know that a larger voice of the constituency itself in all the wards, we would want to determine what the voice of the people are on that. I think part of the sound public policy is to, if you are very convinced that a monetary source like these 2 are in fact the way to go to fill that budget deficit, let's have that affirmed by the people themselves.
Well, I appreciate that very much. My question is, does the chamber plan on taking an official position in favor of or against these measures if they were to appear in front of the public?
I wouldn't speak on behalf of our board of directors without that current direction.
Well, wait, no, I'm not asking what the position would be. I'm asking, will you and the board of directors consider this and come up with some recommendation either in favor of or against the 2 measures?
Councilor Anderson, in my experience, and mind you, it's my 7th month on the job. However, I have served in this organization 6 years prior to that, as well as for 6 years as a board member. the Chamber of Commerce will take a position on these two measures.
Great, thanks. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Hoffert? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jeff Miller, followed by Maria Palacio.
Good evening, Council. Mayor, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Jeff Miller. I live in Ward 8, and I am here to basically discuss ordinance 1119, the payroll tax, and 1219, the city operating fee, and again, encourage, kind of dovetailing into Mr. Hoffert's comments, that it should be referred to the people for voting purposes as opposed to this body just making a decision. Interestingly, I had spoken to several chamber members, two of which were property managers for multifamily properties. And in both cases, instantly the comment was those fees are going to be passed directly to the tenants. And I don't know what the percentage is, but in some cases, those are low-income housing units. And so going back to comments earlier about trying to get additional low-income housing available and those types of things, I think this is, again, a potential detriment and should be up to the people to speak upon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Miller? Maria.
Mayor Bennett, members of the City Council and all present, I am Maria Palacio. My address is 2745 Upper Breckenridge Loop, Northwest. And I am one of those small business owners. And I want you to know, first of all, that I do want to contribute. I understand that you have a need. I understand that we all need to do our part and help you and give our taxes and collaborate. But I also want you to know how difficult it is to have a small business. I think you sit down there and you say, oh, $38, $40, they can do it. It's not that easy when you are a small business owner. This year we had to increase salaries because, the minimum wage has gone up. We have to pay more so that all our employees have the opportunity to save money and have an IRA. And we have to pay that. It's a mandate. And now you are going to be imposing this other tax on us. Let me tell you that we do make literally pennies to a dollar in profit. And I am here bearing myself, my reality of my business. Last year we made $3,000 profit in the whole year. I have worked for years without being paid. But I'm there because I believe I want to contribute. This country has given me a lot, and I want to give back. And I am there providing opportunities to work to people who otherwise would not have an opportunity to work. Us small businesses provide those jobs to people that otherwise will not be hired anyplace else. But if you keep squeezing us, this life out of us, we're going to close. I've been talking to other people, to other small businesses, and it's just way too much. So again, we want to help. We want to do our part. But please, when you make these decisions, consider that we are not all equal, and that we are small businesses, and that we are not the same as a major corporation for whom $40 is going to be nothing, but that for us is really going to make a big difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Councilor Young?
Yes, ma'am.
What business are you with?
Olson Florist.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Matt Hale, followed by T.J. Sullivan.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. I previously sent an email to my council member in Ward 4, and I live in Ward 4. I'm also would ask that the council consider sending this to the voters for approval. And I've spent some time researching the budget, and I'm a little concerned that the fiscal year 2020 budget seeks a 5.9% increase in expenditures. And I'm uncertain why we need an 1,100%. Let me say that again. 1,100% increase in the contingency fund, a 68% increase in natural gas expenditures. I don't understand that one at all. 9.9% increase to medical insurance expenses, and the list goes on. And I'm completely baffled in your budget by why in the general fund we have $2,773,270 under personnel incentives. What are personnel incentives? I'd like to know the answer to that. Are those bonuses? Are we giving those to city employees for hard work? That's a lot of money, almost $3 million. In the entire Salem budget, it's almost $3 million in the personnel budget under incentives. I'd also ask that the city of Salem look to ask the employees to contribute to their health insurance. In the general fund, if they contributed 5% towards their medical and 5% towards dental, and we got rid of that contingency fund increase of $2,750,000 and almost $3 million in incentives, in wages, that's over $6 million. That's almost your $8 million that you need. So this is just a little bit of the research I've done. I have some questions. I'm sure there'll be some answers. I'm sure others might have the same questions that I have as well. But I wanted to come here and talk about that. And that's all I have to say. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Great, thank you. Councilor Kaiser?
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. I'm just curious, have you attended a budget committee meeting in the past?
No, I have
Or
not.
watched them online or Facebook or?
No, I have not.
I would encourage you to do that. I think you'll get some responses to your questions and better understand how the general fund is divided out and what those specific fund types are for. So just a suggestion and also reaching out to our finance officer as well.
Does the city require their employees to contribute to health insurance, dental insurance, vision insurance?
I believe so, but that's a great question for, yep.
They already do 5%? Okay. It would be nice if the public knew that. I mean, we would be better informed. Any other questions?
Well, thank you for asking a question, because now they are. It's, Councilor Anderson, did you have a question? No. Okay.
No, sir, I didn't.
Okay. TJ?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Councilors. My name is TJ Sullivan. I reside in Ward 4. And I think with the exception of Councilor Bennett, or Mayor Bennett, excuse me, and Councilor Nanke, who was in this body when the earth was cooling, I have more experience as a city councilor than the rest. And I can tell you that there's the reputation that you have for being stunningly non-transparent. And in major issues, there's a lack of deliberation, there's a lack of public discourse, there's a lack of getting out and explaining why we need what we need, or how you're voting, why you're voting that particular way. And so my encouragement to you on something like this is a major issue. And by referring it to the voters, you have to get out of this body. And I would even suggest that you have to get out beyond your neighborhood associations and the 6 to 10 people who might be attending that meeting, and go and meet with people and make the case to the people and explain to them why this is necessary. When I was on council, year after year, we had exponential water and sewer rate increases in order to stabilize things, so we weren't pumping Dookie into the Willamette River. And they were large increases, and we got out as a group and went and met with people who liked us and who didn't like us to explain to them why we needed to do what we were doing. That's your job as a city councilor. It's not to sit in here and not talk to the public. It's not to sit in here and not deliberate on major issues. You need to get out of here and go talk to the people and explain these issues. And when you put it to a vote of the people, that's exactly what you're forced to do. Not to send out city staff, but to go out and be out there and say, listen, as a city, this is why we need to do what we do. When I was on council, we were faced with these same difficult decisions about raising raising funds or making cuts. And we had to make some hard decisions. Yes, we raised water and sewer rates. We also cut the Parks and Rec department. That was not an easy decision. We did not make that decision overnight. We did not make that decision without deliberation. We made that decision after getting out and listening to the public and talking to them and explaining about what we were going to do. You have that opportunity tonight. Don't hide. Get out and talk. Refer it to the voters, but get out and do your jobs as city councilors and communicate with these folks outside of this body. Thank you for your time.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Joel Blount. Followed by Mark Akimov.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Joel Blount. I live in Ward 3. I'm also a small business owner. I'm here to oppose these taxes, not on the basis that there isn't a need for revenue. I think there's definitely a need for revenue, so I definitely support some revenue increase. I don't think that's the issue. I would recommend that both of these go to voters, but I'd also like to mention to the council, to sort of piggyback on what TJ said, that a lot of this information isn't getting out there to the folks, and I'm not going to suggest that it's city council's job individually, but how does the council get this information out to people better, whether that's through social media, Twitter. I get the Statesman Journal. Maybe there was good coverage about this and I missed it, but I didn't see it. I first learned about this issue about 2 months ago at a public policy meeting at the Chamber, and I think there's probably better ways and more opportunities to get this information out to folks, and I'd really encourage you to do that. I would also like to say that if I were to vote for one of these taxes, I would vote for the operating fee and leave the payroll tax away. It looks like it's a much more difficult tax to enact. It also just makes it that much more difficult for business owners as you're trying to either increase your business or start a new business. It's complicated as heck to get a business started today because we continue to add on these new regulations and new fees, and it just becomes overwhelming where people just don't even want to try anymore. And I know it's a big task to ask to try and get this information out to people, but I think we can do a better job, and I think we can communicate it better. Because the information that I got from the city says, to maintain essential city services, we need to raise $16 million. And in the same paragraph, it goes on and says, but if we get this $16 million, we're going to invest in neighborhoods, a new a fire station, we're going to expand library hours, we're going to fund the homeless rental assistance program, and we're going to get much needed additional support in community services. I don't even know what the shortfall is. It's not 16 million. But I think we could do a better job of letting the public know what is the actual shortfall to meet the level of service that we have today, and then what's the additional revenue that we're trying to generate, because we do want more police officers in the streets. That's something I want to see, but it gets confused and convoluted with all the other information that's in here and the two different taxes coming from two different places in two different ways. Let's try and simplify it for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. Any questions? Mark Akimov?
Okay, thank you. I live just a mile.
I need your name and your address.
Mark Akimov, and I live in Marion County, so I'm not really represented by any of you, and I guess that's kind of the core of the issue here, is that I have no say in re-electing you or supporting you as my elected representatives to make this decision, and it's clearly taxation without representation. I do support more parks in Salem. Salem needs a new skateboard park. All of you know that. It's the Marion Square is terrible, and kids shouldn't be down there. It's a terrible place to send your kids if you have kids that skateboard. So that is very important. Parks needs more money. Fire is very important. It's only a matter of time before a Santa Rosa happens here, West Salem or something. We need to be funding that. Police, obviously very important to protecting our community. But you do need to put this to a public vote, and you also need to somehow make sure that those of us that are outside of the city limits are somehow represented in this. I go back to what some of the former speakers say. I wrote every single one of you here an email, and I got zero response about this. I looked one of you in the face and said no to the payroll tax, and I got a smug look and a walk away. Like, you need to engage people and have a conversation with them. You just have to get it voted on by the public. And
And frankly, I do question where the money is going and what you're doing, where the budget shortfalls are. I worked for Public Works for 5 years for the city of Salem, and Mr. Chandler and Mr. Fernandez know there's what's called the June budget drop. They'll like just dump money to get it down to zero, so they've cleared out their budget every year. If there's extra money left over, figure a way to route it to parks. I mean, I don't know what the task force did, but they gave you very bad recommendations. If your immediate response was, let's tax the worker, let's go hit the low income workers in the city and let's hit them up for the money, because that's terrible. You saw a development, a subdivision going in. There's SDCs from that. Why aren't you using the SDCs to fund your parks? Start figuring out better ways to get the money from the rampant development happening in South Salem. If you need a new fire station out there, use some of that money to put it into the services that are needed in those particular communities. Also, I mean, why are the Sanyos and Panasonics getting tax breaks from the city? How about they put the burden on them, not on the worker?
Okay, thank you very much. Jason Miranda.
Hello, my name is Jason Miranda. I live at 1765 B Street, Northeast Salem. And I'm here just representing myself and my family. I think that I'm opposed to the payroll tax. I'm maybe your average type of voter. When the ballot comes out and I look through things, and I see city council people, coming up or whatever. I never really thought much about it. Didn't actually realize you guys have the power to impose a tax on everybody without anyone actually voting. And tell you what, I'll pay closer attention next time. But that said, I do think I support the other people that have come up today and spoke. An issue like this does need to go before the people. And I just wanted to state that. So thank you very much for giving me the time to do that.
You bet. Thank you very much. Appreciate your pitch for people pay attention to their counselors. Tim Cowan.
Mayor, City Council members, my name is Tim Cowan. I live on 116 Sherman Drive. I wrote some notes down here that are going to be a little bit different. I have the trademark as a citizen's lobbyist, so I spent a lot of time at the Capitol. The one thing I thought was really interesting is we have a gross receipts tax that's coming up, and that's going to hit small businesses like you wouldn't believe, and it's also going to hit the people too. Number two, 12% of state revenue comes from fees. If you look at Washington and Utah, California, it's less than 1%, but we do 12. So think of that when you're looking at fees. Now, the Association of State Budget Officers, Oregon's revenue per capita is 50% more than the national average per state. When I asked the treasurer about revenue, he said we didn't have a revenue issue, we have a spending issue that has to be maintained by taxes. Now, how about expenditures? General, I think the city employees that I have met, I would hold in the same high regard as I did the employees that work for me in the bank. I was able to produce results that no one thought possible. My involvement, I spoke to the chairman of the boards of the various banks that made up First Interstate Bank, and they asked me how I was so successful. And I said, I get paid for what I don't do. I have good managers. I expect them to grow their employees and have them participate in establishing the goals and the priorities. And it was amazing the employees would participate and make a commitment to the end result. There's an administrator for the Building and Safety Department. When I talked to him briefly, he mentioned that the revenues coming in for the services provided pay for the expenditures. I'll bet that you have the ability to establish programs through your managers that allow your employees to participate. And you'll get results that no one thought possible, because in a lot of cases, they know where the expenses that can be cut or services can be provided. So just keep in mind, you've got the gross receipts tax coming up, and you pay 12% of your income comes from fees. And Oregon per capita receives 50% more revenue than the average for the states in the United States.
Okay, thank you very much, Tim. Any questions? Thank you. Anyone else want to speak on this, or on this issue, I guess, it's not any other, on this issue? All righty, do we have any questions for staff? Yes, Councilor Lewis.
I want to question the idea of if these measures were to go to the ballot in May of 2020, and assuming that they both passed, how soon could the collection on each one of them begin?
Great question. So as you can see on this slide up on the screen, the top portion is for the operating fee, the bottom portion is for the payroll tax. And it shows the difference between implementation by, enacting by council and if it's referred to voters at the May general election. So for the operating fee, it would add essentially a year, and then also for the payroll tax.
Okay.
Okay.
So the election causes it to slow down outside of just the election itself?
So if the operating fee is enacted, collections would begin first part of this next calendar year. So
Correct.
that it would be effective January 1st, and collections would begin in March. So with the general election being in May, it pushes it out slightly. I'm not certain, Peter, you might be able to address the actual programming needs there.
Yeah, Peter Fernandez, Public Works Director and acting for my boss, the city manager this evening. The operating fee, other than the delay in the election, the operating fee could start relatively quickly after passage, on the assumption that staff would be, working on it now. The payroll tax, we were having this discussion earlier. It would be difficult for the city to ask the Department of Revenue to start work on something that had not passed the electorate. That's right. So I think the payroll tax would have a much more significant delay because the city staff is not working on that we're relying on the state of Oregon to work on that. But the operating fee could be implemented a lot sooner after the election.
Yes.
Well, yeah, okay. Under that scenario, Peter, the income from the operating fee would come in sooner, and the payroll tax would be delayed. From a budgetary standpoint, would that create a situation where we would be able to be compliant as we wait for the total collection to happen?
Yeah, why don't you bring up that other slide, Josh? Yeah, so as we were looking at the projections, we think we would be out of compliance not this coming fiscal year, but the following one. But our sense is that we would have to start budgeting for some level of reductions in the coming fiscal year, depending on how revenues come in and depending on what savings occur. But I don't think we'd want to wait till 2 years out to start making cuts if we didn't have the revenues in place.
So just as a brief explanation, the slide on the screen is at the current service level with no additional revenue and no reductions. So in fiscal year 2022, with the current budget, we wouldn't be able to adopt that budget. We'd have to make reductions at that point. And as Peter said, ending the year with $3.4 million in working capital isn't a good idea.
And council policy is what on the working capital?
So 15% of ongoing revenues, and this all the ending working capitals here are out of compliance with that policy.
Now, what is, and so the 15.8, what is the number right now?
So this is a little bit more detailed slide. This assumes $3.4 million of the operating fee revenue as if it's implemented in January. So the council policy right there is 20 million.
Okay.
So we would end at just under council policy with that $3.5 million. Without that $3.5 million, it would be under.
Okay, okay. And working capital is for?
So working capital is both the reserve savings, and it also is a cash flow mechanism for the general fund. We get property taxes in November, so it bridges the gap between July and November in order to make payroll.
So traditionally, if you don't have that kind of working capital, what you're doing is short-term borrowing at interest.
Short-term borrowing, internal borrowing, it would bear interest costs, yes.
Okay. Councilor Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Josh, could you put up the slide before, please? So I see that red down there that says non-compliant with budget law. What happens if we're non-compliant with budget law?
So we would not adopt a budget that was not compliant with budget law.
So what will we have to do?
So it would have to be reductions.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
I do have another question.
Oh, yeah, you go ahead.
Thanks. This is not necessarily for you, Josh, but we've heard that the city hasn't offered any explanation of what's going on here and why we're spending and how we're budgeting and how we're cutting. I'm just curious as to what sort of information the city has put out about the budget process and about the two pieces of revenue we're discussing tonight.
I'll defer to Courtney Knox-Bush.
Good evening, Mayor, councilors. My name is Courtney Knox-Bush, and I'm working in the city manager's office. And in answer to your question, we have been publishing the city's fiscal situation through the budgeting process as part of everything that led up through the strategic plan and into the budget committee hearings and conversations. I know that was covered well by our two papers, and we've put out a lot through social media and our own website, as well as having lots of conversations in the community with, which were referenced earlier with the chamber and with neighborhood associations and other groups. So there has been lots of information. It's currently on our website as well. Thank you.
Else? Well, at this point, we need, yes, Councilor Leung.
This might actually be a follow-up question for Courtney, maybe?
Sure.
My question specifically was, was the outreach started then around November of last year, all the way up until now? Or what was the timeline when the outreach
I feel like
began?
November sounds right. I know that the coverage in the paper that in the Statesman in particular and the Reporter that really generated a lot of comments and questions and concerns about the city's fiscal situation was probably in November, December, January timeline. We were getting a lot of comments and questions and concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Well, we can, what we'd like to do is kind of perhaps have a motion on how you would like to proceed on each of these elements. I'd suggest you split them. Now, I don't know if you want to split them, but Councilor Hoy will be making the motion, and he nods yes. So we will let Councilor Hoy begin the operation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to direct staff to make the following change to draft ordinance bill number 11-19 relating to an employee tax and present it to the City Council for first reading at the August 26th council meeting. Amend the ordinance to require revenue from the operating fee be dedicated to public safety and provide that it will be referred to Salem voters for approval.
Second by Kaiser. Councilor, you want to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've been talking with the community a lot about this issue. We had a revenue task force. We've received a lot of feedback, a lot of input. We've talked amongst ourselves, and this is a big lift for the city, and it's a territory that we've never gone to before, which is imposing an income tax. And I think it makes sense to ask the voters to weigh in on this. And I do agree with some of the sentiment I heard tonight that it's our job to make the case. And it's also the community's job to engage in that process. We can only say so much. We can't make people hear us, but we do have the obligation to make the case, and I'm prepared to do that. I think that, having been involved in the budgeting process and observed our operations closely, I'm very confident that we run a tight ship here monetarily and budgetarily, and this revenue is needed. It's a fascinating timing with the recent events in terms of public safety, but it's unfortunate timing. But it just highlights the fact that we are underfunding our police department, our fire department, and others. And I think that dedicating this money to those departments that are the biggest user of our general fund, and we need to do a better job funding them. And I think this would allow us to do that.
Councilor Lewis?
Could I ask the counselor to repeat the motion?
Absolutely.
I move to direct staff to make the following change to draft ordinance bill number 11-19 relating to an employee tax and present it to the City Council for first reading at the August 26th council meeting. Amend the ordinance to require revenue from the operating fee be dedicated to public safety and provide that it will be referred to Salem voters for approval.
Now, you've put the two together.
I did.
You didn't mean to, did you?
No, it's...
I'm not sure everybody intended for me to do that, but I intended to do that. I wanted
help me
one.
out here. You want to, why don't we do each of them separately, and you do the operating fee in a separate motion?
So no, this isn't the operating fee. This is
the term operating fee is what I heard.
no.
So your payroll only?
We're strictly talking about the payroll tax. The things that I combined were the public safety and referring it to the vote. But we are not talking about the operating
What's
fee.
going to the voters in your motion?
What's going, whether or not we're going to impose this employee payroll tax.
Okay.
And whether or not those funds would be dedicated to public safety.
Okay.
That's what we would be asking the voters.
Okay.
Was there a
And
second?
the operating fee, how does it work into your motion?
It doesn't. It's just
I
totally.
just heard operating fee. That's why I'm checking again. Yeah.
I'm
Did I just
sorry.
hear it wrong?
I think there was a word in your motion, Counselor Hoy, and perhaps it's just confused. But you're referring to the payroll tax, I know.
Sorry. I apologize.
That's all it is the payroll tax.
Absolutely all it is the payroll tax, and I can restate it if I need
No,
to.
no, I think I get it now. Do you have it recorded correctly? Okay, why don't we do it again?
All right, let's see if I can, third time's the charm it. I move to direct staff to make the following change to draft ordinance bill number 11-19 relating to an employee tax and present it to the City Council for first reading at the August 26th council meeting. Amend the ordinance to require revenue from the payroll tax be dedicated to public safety and provide that it will be referred to Salem voters for approval.
At the earliest possible date? Is that what you meant?
That is exactly what I meant.
I thought so. Okay. All righty. Counselor Kaiser.
Thank you. I just want to speak to the motion as well, and I think dedicating this to public safety is important. I know a lot of folks don't understand how the general fund is made up, but the bulk of the funding goes to public safety out of that, and I think it makes sense that as we're talking about this, and especially of the events of the last week and a half, that it's becoming more and more apparent that we need to increase our public safety within the city. We need to make sure that those services are fully funded. It is the core thing that the city does. It provides as a service. So my hope is also that all the people that I've talked to and over the last few weeks, and it's been many people, almost every person I've contacted or talked with that lives in Salem have been talking about this issue. I hope that they will really get down into the details of what this really is doing and get beyond the Facebook clickbait stuff and really read what we're trying to do and the problems that our city is facing and come out and support this.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Nanki?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kind of a sideline question, if I may, because it'll affect my vote on this, knowing the motion that may come forward regarding operating fee. And is that motion similarly going to be adjusted to refer to the voters based on the future maker of said motion?
Are you asking me?
Yep.
If I'm making that motion, I don't intend to amend that one to refer it.
Thank you.
Councilor Anderson?
Well, no, if I
I'm
can
sorry,
follow
I'm
on from that, because that kind of informs my decision-making process on this. If we inflict an operating fee on our populace, then I would assume more than likely it's going to be referred to the voters by the public as well. And then we go out and put an employee payroll tax on a ballot, and on that same ballot is the referral, because we didn't ask him about the other one. It's like the dog with the bone and looks down into the nice clear pond and sees his reflection and wants the other bone too, and reaches for it and loses both bones. That's how I see this potentially progressing. And if that other one goes to the voters and fails, then we have this, and all of the money goes only to public safety. And that's not where we're hearing a lot of the issue with the general fund. It's shutting down other core services so that we can maintain that level of public safety as well.
Well,
I don't like it.
As I recall, 81% of the general fund goes to public safety at this point. Is that right, or 80%, something like that? Do you remember?
No, it's property taxes only supply like 70-some%.
Yeah, that doesn't cover police and fire. Property taxes do not cover
Right,
police
the
and
entirety
fire.
of it.
Yeah, that's right.
We
I'm just not
looking
sure
for
what
an answer?
percentage it is.
But again, if we have other
Besides
issues.
a lot.
We'll get you the actual number in a second, but we think it's around 60%.
60%, okay, thank you.
Then are we going to take and put all of this $9.1 or $2 million to public safety and take some of the other general fund money that was going there and move it to supplement other things? I think that would be a serious mistake as well in regards to credibility with the voters. If that were the only one to end up out of the two, if the other one is referred and we lose it, but because they see public safety on this one and it's actually attached to something.
Okay.
I'm not comfortable
Let you
with.
cogitate
And
on
I'm not comfortable with two, because we told the community we were 8 million short, and then we dropped 2 bombs on them and say, we're going up for 16 instead, which gets us to that dog bone scenario.
Okay.
And I slower bites, and we need to actually be out there talking to people. I don't think we've polled, but if you pull them after you inflict something on them, they tend to come with a more negative viewpoint.
Okay. Councilor Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I thank you, Councilor Nanki, for elucidating what might happen on the second motion that might be in front of us here. And I will try to be as transparent as possible, which I think I always try to be, but there may be some who may not agree with that. Let me first say that my view of things is that the council on both things, both items before the council, should pass them and without referring them to the voters. I expressed this at the last time. We're a representative democracy. We're not a pure democracy. We got elected because of the stands and positions we took, and we also got elected because the public knows us enough to trust our judgment. And I said, as I said last time, one of my campaign bullet points, both times I ran, was we need to increase our revenue. So that was out there as far as I was concerned. Having said that, I recognize I'll just say the degree of angst in some parts of the community about should this go to the public or should this not go to the public. And in the past, I have also said that oftentimes the best compromise is when each side is a little unhappy. So on this situation, I am going to be voting for Councilor Hoy's motion to refer this matter to the people. But on the other side, on the other motion that I anticipate that will come, that is the council itself votes to enact the operating fee, I will be voting for that. So of the two items we have here, I think one can be voted on and enacted by the council, and the other can go to the voters. And I think that's politically speaking, a fair compromise to make, and that's how I'll be voting tonight.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Nanki?
If I may, and looking
I'm still
at
thinking about the dog and the bone in the pond.
No, now I'm actually thinking about who's going to be the voters that are impacted by this. It will not be minimum wage earners. It will not be retired people. It will, meaning they will pay nothing on a payroll tax. People who are independently wealthy and are living off endowments. You look at the numbers of people who potentially are going to vote who will not be impacted versus an operating fee, which is going to impact everybody on their utility basis, to vote to tax other people who don't even live here. And again, that non-representation of those people who we will be inflicting a tax on. Just wanted to throw that out on the record as well.
Well, I'm going to support this motion because the council's half right. The other half is we should be putting out the other measure to a vote as well. These are, I'm just convinced, and I think listening to this gentleman talk about our budget, I realize we are not penetrating, and obviously someone who can sit down, read a budget, and say, here's what I'm finding, is not getting the information we think is out there about what our fiscal situation looks like. We all know what it looks like. We know how difficult it's going to be. We know what the cuts look like. We know we have a police department. As I recall, and if I'm wrong, I know someone will correct me, but we're still working with the same size police department we did in like 2008 or 9. I don't know where we are on it. I know we needed 9 new officers this year. Clearly, we need more officers. We have one of our fire department locations outside the city limits. We have cut the number of firefighters on ladder trucks to 3. I continue and have since 2008 believed it should be 4, just for the safety of the firefighters and for having the right people, the right numbers on an incident. There's just one thing after another that points to public safety as the real core of our issues. But I think to just go to that operating fee and raise it, and the kind of impact I'll have without letting people learn what we all know or think we know, and forcing us to face the voters and talk about it, I think is genuinely a mistake. And I was elected by whatever, 30-some thousand, almost 40,000 people. Not once did I say I'm going to raise your taxes. Now, I don't mean to be duplicitous, and I'm not going to be duplicitous. I did not say I'm going to personally raise your taxes. I'll sure let you vote. But for me to come in and do that, I think is a real, really unfair. Now, if I had gone out and I'd run like crazy saying, I cannot wait to get in there and raise an operating fee on your utility bill and come for your wages, then, and I still got lots of votes and won, but I'd feel pretty justified. But I didn't run on that, and I don't remember any. Now, Tom, I will correct myself. You probably did run on higher taxes, but I don't know if everyone else did. I just think I honestly think it's a mistake, and I think we will live to regret it when we have to go out again on other important issues like streets and bridges, repairing, or doing whatever other bonded. We need fire equipment. We're gonna have to go out for fire equipment. That stuff is aging out. And I think we're gonna have a heck of a time facing the voters if we have imposed what I think Maria appropriately described as a pretty onerous tax on her small business, and tax that I, as a wage earner, did not anticipate. So I just, that's my best thought on it, but I'll sure join you in sending it to the voters, this one. I just can't go with you on not sending the other. I sometimes wish I'd just done what Tom did and go out there and say, I'm going to raise your taxes, but I wouldn't be sitting here today, I think, if I had. I don't think that's what people are. They want to vote on their taxes. They don't want us voting on their taxes. I'm just convinced of it. Tom? Tom?
Yeah, thanks. This is not a response to what
No,
you
that's
said,
fine.
Mr. Mayor, because I think we've both made our points on that. I do have a question. I think it's for the city attorney. If you could give us a definition of public safety when we say that would be dedicated to public safety.
Well, public safety can include different things, police, fire, code enforcement, as well as, internal services that go to support them. So as municipal court, if we're going to be hiring more police officers or firefighters, there's an HR component to that. So it depends, how tightly or loosely you want to define it.
Which is why I asked for a definition, and I appreciate that. Let me ask just a question in aid of a further definition. Let's say we all saw the situation down on Ravon on Commercial where the young girl got run over by somebody out there, and as one of the responses to that, we have installed a crosswalk there with the flashing lights and with an island and with other things. Does that come under the rubric of public safety?
Is that a question for the city attorney?
Yes, it is. I'm sorry. It's not a rhetorical question. I mean, to my view, that is public safety, and maybe it looks like...
I'm going to save the city attorney from that question. With the words public safety, I think it can be as expansive or as limited as ultimately the Budget Committee and the City Council would like it to be. I think, certainly, what most people understand it to be would be police and fire, but I think it's obviously code enforcement. The police chief will tell you is part of public safety. The park ranger is part of public safety. And then after that, I think we would look, if this were to pass the council, pass the voters, I think we would look to the council to then give us direction as budget writers to see what exactly you would want that to mean, how expansive or how limited you would want that to be.
Okay. Yes, Councilor Leo.
Thank you. So the big thing that I wanted to address, first of all, is thank you, Councilor Hoy, for making that motion to amend the ordinance bill 1119. I'm glad that it will be going to the voters and it'd be a great opportunity also for not only us, but also for the city to continue to do the education and outreach and making sure that people understand the importance of why these ordinances were proposed in the first place and why it's important to balance our budget. To add on to that, I wanted to also address the focus groups that was organized by DHM Research that's within here. And it looks like there was only a total of 23 individuals who were sampled who participated in these two research groups. 23 out of about 175,000 people within the city of Salem?
165.
165, okay.
Who's counting?
Right. But I mean, is 23 people an actual sample of our community? No. Exactly. And I mean, if you actually read through the report and who participated, when they on the, I think it was Appendix A or B, where they had the demographics of the community, I mean, that's not even a true representation of who each of us represent. And I'm glad that this particular ordinance will be, hopefully, will be going to voters.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion, Councilor Hoy's motion. Everyone understands what we're doing. We're sending a payroll tax out to the voters. We'll amend it, and then at the 26th, was it?
Yeah, staff will come back on the 26th. We'll do a first reading
do
from
a-
there, and that, this is just, all we're doing tonight is directing staff to make some amendments to the ordinance.
Okay.
Just to clarify, I believe Councilor Hoy's motion also included a provision to dedicate the
Yes.
funds to public safety.
Correct. Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay. One nay, Nanki, okay? Now, Councilor Hoy, do this one right too, and we're in.
I will try to get this one correct on the first try instead of the third try. It's going to be right, so go ahead. I move City Council pass ordinance bill 12-19 implementing a city operating fee.
Second.
Who's second? Anderson. Councilor Hoy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we've kind of already spoken about the merits of this, but I do think we live in a representative democracy, and it is up to us sometimes to use our judgment. And I know that those decisions are not always popular, but we do have a budget hole that needs to be filled. I think this is a fair way to do it. I know it's not popular, and I know it will be a burden on some. I know that. I don't take these decisions lightly, and I don't take that burden lightly. But I do think it's the right thing to do, so.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion, anyone? Councilor Ossek?
I just want to add, for this one, I think it's important to remember the urgency of those numbers there, that we'll be out of our own policy compliance immediately if we don't pass this. So that's, I think, the difference for me between the employee tax and this one is if we don't do this, we're going to be out of budget compliance immediately. So we really need to act on this. We can't wait a year or more.
Councilor Lewis?
Yeah, I can't support the motion, and I do disagree that we don't have, especially when it comes to the operating fee. I do believe there is time to send this to the voters, and after its passage, have time to implement the fee and collect it when, which will keep us in compliance. I firmly believe that through all of the advice that we got from folks that worked on this, the common denominator is you really should take this to the voters. I recognize the theory of a representative democracy. I choose to look at it differently. I'm representing folks. It is my responsibility to continue to be in touch with them, not to sit here isolated and make decisions. And so I'm adamant that this needs to go to the voters as well as the other one.
Councilor Nanki?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And likewise, it would be my intent that this would go to the voters in response to the urgency. We've been looking at this coming down the pipe for at least the last 18 and a half years as well. And if I recall, city manager back in the beginning said someday we're going to have to right-size this because we keep kicking it down the road, and the end of the road is now here. I also think that where we showed the actual collection of fees being on January 1st, because that's when we typically have the rate slope take place, we could in the ballot say to initiate on July 1st and move 6 months up on collection. So.
Are you thinking of a substitute motion at all, or you just want to vote no?
And here in the, as my counselor to the north says, it doesn't take a weatherman to tell you which way the wind is blowing.
Okay. All righty. Councilor Lewis?
Yeah, I will make the substitute motion to have the staff bring back the information necessary to send the operating fee to the voters.
Second.
Second by Nanki. Discussion, Councilor Kaser.
Thank you. I'd like to speak to a bit, actually, what Councilor Nanki brought up, and that is previous city council saw this coming for 18 years-ish. And I wasn't on those previous city councils, but there were some people in the room on those previous city councils. And I think what did happen in the past is there were cuts made. There was never any revenue increase, though. There was no balancing of that equation. It was very one-sided and lopsided. And now we find ourselves in the position of having to just remove, and we can't add back. We can't even restore to where we were at 10 years ago as a city. If you're a business and you keep cutting and cutting, you eventually will go out of business. If you do not explore how to raise revenue, your business will not be viable, period. That's just how it works. The city is not in the position to close. I guess we could disincorporate. There are things that we could do. I don't think that's what we're going to do, but we're not in the position that we're just going to close. What will happen is we will continue to cut. And we'll continue to cut probably this year, and people will feel those cuts. Because the more we push this down the road, the more we kick this can down the road, the harder and harder it's going to be to make those cuts. And that's what will happen. It's not a if, it is a when. And that time is coming soon. We need to pass this as a council. This is within our purview. It's an operating fee. It's different than the payroll tax. Those two issues are also separate. I know the city manager presented those things as a package. I don't see them in that way. I see them as a distinct thing, and I think they need to be presented and talked about in a distinctive way also. I think they've become conflated, and that's really unfortunate. But I think the inevitable will happen, and because previous councils have refused to act because it wasn't politically within their favor, because for whatever those reasons, we are now feeling all of those effects, and it will affect every single resident in this city.
Well, Councilor, I just couldn't agree with almost everything you said, except I think sometimes when you have a business, and particularly one that's this big, and you've got shareholders out there that would like to participate in it, I think it's worth at least looking at that concept. I mean, I think this is a shared responsibility. I disagree with the kicking the can down the road. What we did was continue to balance budgets against existing revenues for years. And at some point, for some reason, we just never got our act together, I think, to go to the voters. Now, you're not going to do it again. And I think you will, I really think you're making a mistake. But, yep.
So just to address, too, a little bit about the communication that, to get to what Kara was saying, the history of this, we started with this with our initial, when our new council came in, when I came in with, but okay, we see a hole. I know I was one of those who was talking about there's a revenue gap when I was running. And we came in and we said, how are we going to fill this hole? We don't want to just pick something at random. So we talked about strategic planning, getting that priority-based budgeting so we could see the line items and where cuts could be made, where efficiency could be made. Came through that, went through a very public process with the Revenue Task Force, with this whole room filled with people talking about this issue for months, and we had 2 different public work sessions in the library, again filled with people. We've communicated through all of the social media channels, everything we could do without spending lots and lots of money. And I think that's the difference here with communication from the city. We would also, I don't think anybody would support us spending lots and lots of money actually getting this out there like a for-profit company would if they were making a huge change. And so we do what we can, and I know that not everyone receives the information, but we make it as available as we can and offer as many opportunities as we can. And we can't, I think we have to finish the process that we started with our strategic plan and our budgeting and that task force and those work sessions, and not kick the can down the road and give ourselves out of compliance with our budget.
Yeah, the only message that I will suggest to you, Councilor, didn't get through was that Revenue Task Force strongly recommended, and I think it was close to unanimous, that you put these to a vote. That clearly did not penetrate this body. Councilor Lewis?
I guess want to echo some thoughts. It's not a question of need for me. I'm standing ready, willing, and able to support both of these ballot measures, work to get them passed because that's the best thing for the city. My only contention is not the need, it's not the numbers. It's the permission, it's asking. And I believe that it's not fair to not ask.
Councilor Anderson.
I'd like to speak a little bit to the representative democracy concept and the sentiment expressed by some in this room that apparently all we do as city councilors is come here every other the second and fourth Monday of the month and in a pure vacuum make decisions, and we don't keep in contact with our voters and the people who elected us. Well, that's categorically not true. I know that every counselor here goes to neighborhood group meetings. Every counselor here has people in the public come up and speak to them, and have people in the public shout at them as they're leaving a public event. For a long time, I kept track of my time for over 4 months, and I was averaging 33 hours on council business per week, and a significant percentage of that was running into people when I'm riding my bike through the park who want to talk to me about something, seeing somebody at LifeSource who wants to talk to me about something, getting phone calls, getting people coming to my house to talk about things. So I would categorically reject that we are not in contact with our constituents on a regular basis as opposed to coming here in a vacuum. So I think this is a decision that we should make, and I agree with Councilor Hoy that it's a hard decision, but it's one that we get paid the big bucks to make the hard decisions, folks, which for those of you who are out there, big bucks equals zero.
Okay. Oops. Councilor Young, I'm sorry.
It's okay, thank you. So when we had the work session, when we were discussing this, one of the questions I asked was about the impact on people who are renters, especially including people who perhaps were single family or single income households. And the question that I had asked had to do with like, will we see an increase in the rent? And I think at the time staff had said, yes, eventually there would be an increase, and that is one of my main contentions by not having the voice of the voters on this particular matter, because I mean, taking into consideration who are we impacting? Think about who we have in our communities, who are we representing. I mean, I've been on the council now for about 8 months, and I mean, if folks also recall when we were, or before I came aboard, the fire department, for example, in Ward 8 was closed, and now it's reopened again. And the reason why I'm bringing those examples up is because, I mean, we do see that we've had to, or City Council had to balance the budget before. And, I mean, for us to do a taxation without actually having people provide their vote, provide their voice, I feel it's a disservice. I also wanted to speak about the process of how outreach was done initially, at least based on from what Courtney has mentioned. It was published in the budget process, strategic plan, in paper, social media, chambers, neighborhood associations, probably also through some of the outreach that we have done as city councilors. But one of my, as a opposite example, for example, the Our Salem Comprehensive Plan, I'm seeing more advertisement for that, for city staff to do a lot of outreach within the community at community events. I don't know how much was done for either of these two particular ordinances, that kind of level of outreach. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Nanki.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just looking at the survey that Councilor Young was looking at earlier, those people even didn't know what our budgetary crisis really is, because we really are in a bad way, and it's based on the the tax system, and the fact that 30% of Salem's property isn't even on the tax rolls. But putting it out to the voters, and was Manager Norris, we went out and did community meetings.
Yeah.
And we were out there educating people. This is how our budgets work. This is how the separation lines lie. And that's what taking something the voters does. Because they don't think we have a problem, because we keep taking money out of the ending fund balance and keeping everything looking happy and pretty for them to a large extent. And they're going to see this drop on them, and I don't think they're going to be very happy. And if you're looking for a referendum and a fail on the other one, that number is real.
Okay. Yes, Counselor.
I'd just like to say that I think it's really important, if you put one of these on the ballot or if you put both of them on the ballot, that there is very specific information about what the money will go for, because I have worked hard to raise money for schools for many years as I served on the school board, and people are very suspicious of any kind of revenue raising that doesn't spell out in the voting title exactly what the money will be spent for. And if they feel like there's any wiggle room, then even if they feel like there's a need, they're afraid to give you the wiggle room. And I'm sorry that we're in that situation, but we are.
Okay, I'm going to have a 5-minute recess. And I mean 5. 5 minutes. Meeting back to order. Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to offer a substitute motion.
I think we have a substitute.
Second.
I'd like to offer a new substitute motion.
Okay, we're going to substitute.
Yes.
Okay.
A second substitute. And my substitute motion would be to table Ordinance Bill 12-19 and refer it back to staff for further review.
Second by Ossick. Councilor Lewis?
No, I'm here now. I want to move forward, not back. The only thing I haven't mentioned this before, I'm going to now. I've only lived in Salem for 20 years. One of the things that has really amazed me is the continual support that this community gives in elections. Starting with the Streets and Bridges bond measure in 2008, which no one predicted would pass, but yet the city recognized the need and voted for it. I believe it's the same city, and I believe with the campaign that, again, I'm more than willing to work very hard at, I believe that the residents of this city will pass both of these measures, and so I think that's the way we should go.
Okay.
And if I may, I think there is a substitute motion on the floor to refer the fee to the voters.
So procedurally, you can have up to 3 motions on the floor at one time, so the motion is proper.
This is number 3. We're okay. I hear what you're saying. Trust me, from here, I'd rather it was only 1. So, but we'll start with number 3, which is Hoy's motion to table and refer back to staff, or to really not to table it, literally to refer it back to staff for further work. So what you're saying is it'll go back to staff to be brought forward at some future date?
Correct.
Okay.
And procedurally, that would eliminate the first 2 motions. There's no going back to the
No,
previous.
we're done at that point. Got it? Everybody understand what we're doing? Okay. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Lewis and Nanki, nay. Motion passes. Okay. All righty. So we're 50% there. We're getting there. Okay, special orders of business. 5A, Councilor Lewis.
No, it's me.
Not me.
It's me.
Oh, it has to be Hoy? sorry, Hoy. They've got,
I move to reopen the public hearing on the formation of the Aspen Grove Reimbursement District and reconsider the decision to deny the district.
Second.
second by Ossick.
I would like the city attorney to maybe weigh in on this, just to kind of frame it for us.
Thank you, Dan Atchison, City Attorney. So as noted in the staff report for this item, and as the applicant testified tonight, there was an issue with who and when they received notice of it. The applicant was apparently out of town the night of the hearing, and just to ensure that the applicant receives due process for the application, I would support a motion to reopen the hearing and reconsider the decision. Not that you are obligated to approve the district after a new hearing, but that you would just allow him an opportunity to provide testimony.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Councilor Kaiser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to postpone the decision to remove on-street parking at transit stops to a date certain.
Second.
Second by Hoy.
Yep.
Thank you. This is an issue that I actually had thought had been resolved, but after hearing testimony tonight, it's pretty clear it's not. I really hope that Chariots will work with the city to revisit how they're approaching these transit stops. I think everyone agrees about the need for the ADA compliance, the concrete pads, how best to move the buses in to get to those. But I think the way that this has been done has not been good for neighbors. This is also kind of the first piece of this, it seems. This is going to happen in other areas of the city. So it's kind of a trial run, I guess, so to speak. And we need to figure out the right process for this and the right engagement with neighbors by Chariots. So my hope is that city staff will work with Chariots on outreach and coming to some type of compromise, I guess, about removing any on-street parking that may be necessary.
Yeah, I agree with you, Councilor. I think we're all really excited about having a more robust mass transit system, and that this represents part of that effort. It's just how do we get from here to there? And the only thing I can think of with this one, it was like deja vu, the Broadway bus stop at the ballet school. It just was, there just wasn't the kind of outreach and agreement that really was overcome quickly by meetings between Chariots and the ballet school. I mean, but it was really kind of a mess. And this one had kind of the hallmarks of that as well. But I think listening to the neighbors, I think a lot of it was just they got caught by surprise. They did not feel consulted. I mean, at some point, we're all going to have to help as Chariots looks at increasing their ridership, increasing their ability to serve all kinds of riders on hopefully 7 days a week, soon to be 6. I mean, we all need to work together. I think there was a misstep here is what happened. Yeah, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am a former member of the Lane Transit District Board of Directors down in Eugene and Lane County, and I served a year as the president of the board of the directors of the Lane Transit District. So I fully and completely support increased and enhanced bus system, as I think do the rest of the councilors. And I think, as I think it was Mr. Johnson who said, this is a crucial route. So, but I do think we just need to have some better communication, and that's not to say that I don't agree that the bus decision on that, we may well remove parking, but you know, I came out of the neighborhood groups here, and it's important, even if there only are 6 or 10 people there, to deal with the neighborhood groups in a constructive way. I would also add that we got an email today, and this is more for the public works staff, from someone who's been very involved in the Winter Maple bike pathway, and that was Mr. Obery, who had some discussion about bulb outs as maybe being some other potential. And I understand there's a lot of cost in that, but I think maybe that could be part of the discussion in the interim.
Yeah, great, thank you. Yes.
I just would encourage, I heard that the traffic to the school is one of the issues in this particular issue, and that you loop in the school when you're having conversations to
Yeah.
see if there's some problem solving that could be helped from the school perspective.
Great, thank you. Yes, Counselor.
I'm not sure if it's possible, but right next door or a little bit beyond where the school, where Grant Elementary School is, there's actually a, excuse me, a private daycare that also is right there that goes from infant all the way to preschool. And I mean, I know that the children sometimes go on walks around the neighborhood, and that is another possible safety issue too.
Yep. Well, there's always been safety issues and traffic issues around Grand Elementary, and we've worked on them and continue to work on them from the city perspective. I think Chariots gets to join us in that as well. And it's an interesting, fairly dense neighborhood over there. Great, okay. All those in favor say aye.
Did we pick our date certain?
We don't have a date certain.
No.
Well, then how do we make it for a date certain?
I don't think Counselor wanted to do that yet.
I'd rather that, if possible, that staff can meet with Chariots and then arrive at that and then bring that back to council.
Yeah, let
would
them
be
have as
best.
much time as it takes.
Yeah.
Or as little, whichever it is. Okay? Okay? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion passes. Information reports? Anything? First readings? Doesn't look like we
So-
have either.
Mayor, we're not going to do the first readings on 71A and 71B because we're going to amend the one ordinance and table the other one.
Okay, very good. Okay, then we are finished unless someone's got something else they want to, okay, we are adjourned.